Getting the recording on. So good evening with a global audience, I must say, like, good day to whichever part of the day you are coming in from, because I know Rahul's also not from here. Peter, of course, is in Orlando. So just a very, very warm welcome to all of you for today's open house. And of course, Peter, thank you always for making the time to come and speak to our enthusiastic, aspiring coaches. Every time that we request, you always say yes. So thank you so much. Immense gratitude for being here. And I just also want to extend this really warm welcome to all our prospective and aspiring coaches. Some of you have already signed in for the program. Some of you are still considering. And really I'm sure that in some way or the other, we've known each other, either if not through many, many years of friendship, but then definitely through an email or a WhatsApp exchange. But I'm really happy to have all of you here. And whilst the prime objective of today's open house is really to support you to arrive at a decision, if this is the program that you'd like to do, and if this is the right time for you to do this program, the other idea is also to really just have a conversation around coaching. And all of you have sent such amazing questions that I've just put it all and curated it all together so that it reads through some common themes. Yeah, Peter, we've received many, many questions, and I just managed to get it to you at the nick of time. But let's just see how this goes. Yeah. So before I go ahead, I can't go ahead without thanking my great Back to Source team, Nidhi, Monica, and Priyanka. Nidhi is here, but thanks to all of them. It's their unconditional love and support that allows me to do what I call also my life's work. And of course, from Peter's end, there's Cello and Marsha. So many thanks for enabling Peter to be here and always radiate in his brilliance. So thank you, everybody. And with all of that, let's just get started. So Peter, let me offer it to you to just flag off and share a few words. So otherwise, the rest of the open house, if I have to introduce you, I could spend the entire time just talking about you and your brilliance. So let me offer it back to you.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here, and good evening to those of you that are in the India time zone. I am in Orlando, Florida, as Amrita has indicated, and I've been involved in coaching for the last 26 years, professional coaching. I've been an ICF member for 25 of those years, 26, all 26 years actually. Now they're 26 years old, and I think that coaching is just starting. So I'm enthusiastic. I'm excited. I believe in the modality of coaching even more than I did 2 years ago, than I did 5 years ago, than I did 15 years ago. It has grown up to be a very sophisticated modality, and I can't wait to get into the questions. In fact, if anything, I'd like to reverse this and ask each of you about what's going on in your life and in the world of AI, in the world of learning and development, in the world of whatever you're involved in. But maybe the two will come together in this session with Amrita's brilliant facilitation. So yeah, I'm just happy to be here.
Thank you, Peter. And in my enthusiasm to get started, I missed our whole housekeeping section, but just to let you know that whilst as much as this is a conversation that we will lead in through the questions that have come in, if at any point in time you feel, oh, there's a thought that's coming in my mind, or this has triggered a question, then you could either type it into the chat box, or you can just raise your electronic hand, and it'd be lovely to have more voices in the room. So let this be a conversation amongst all of us, and have each one of us share our perspectives on how we see coaching, and how we can take this forward in this beautiful world that we live in. Yeah, I know I always ask for cameras to come on, but it's completely your choice. Thank you, Pallavi, for making that effort to bring it on. Niyati, welcome. I didn't welcome you earlier. But just to let you know that Peter and I love a visual connect. So if you put your cameras on, we can assure you that there'll be enough energy that's generated that you'll not lose bandwidth. That is my assurance to everyone to keep their camera on. Okay. So I'm going to go with the first question. It's another from a dear friend, Sushil. He's not here, but I know that he will listen into this recording. And Sushil, really, I'm starting with the more tactical questions, Peter, in terms of how the program is designed.
Sure.
Excuse me. And then we go into the deeper bits of it. But so Sushil's question is that how are these 5 days of the program structured? So if you can share a little bit, Peter, about the design of the program without giving in all the juicy stuff, but just a little bit of a design, it'll be great.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The first 5 days really is heavily focused on shifting the mindset of whatever you've been doing professionally to the mindset of a professional coach. So we have lots of exercises. We'll talk about 25 specific competencies or skill sets that we look for at the ACC level coaching. ACC being the first level of ICF credentialing process, then it goes on to PCC and MCC. We can talk about that later if you want. But basically, the first level of coaching is have you, in fact, I think one of you already talked about what do you need to unlearn. So a part of this is coming into the mindset of I am no longer the executive. I am no longer the subject matter expert. I'm no longer the authority. And instead, I am a equal partner, side by side, hand in hand. And my role is to hold a space for my client to figure out whatever they want to figure out. And so there's a huge shift of mindset that has to take place. For me, it took a year, but then I didn't have me training me. So hopefully we can get you through that in the first 5 days. And then in a great regard, we do that. So the instructional design is to talk about it. Number 2 is to demonstrate it. Number 3 is to give you an exercise, an actual exercise to be able to practice that. And then a Q&A session afterwards to say, okay, so how was that? And it said, well, and then most of that one goes something like, well, Peter, you and Amrita make it look so easy, but you know what? It was hard because I wanted to jump in. I wanted to, tell them what to do because I knew I have 15 years experience in exactly what they were talking about. And so that's real basic, but it's also very, very deep. We get into the other major part of the first 5 days is for you to know yourself at a deeper level. And it's one of the earmarks of my work. It's one of the earmarks of back to source, like going deep to whatever that divinity, source, God, Buddha, Jesus, whatever your spiritual tradition is, we want to honor that and get to what were you created, who were you created to be? Drop the labels, drop the CV, all the functionality of what you've done in your life and get down to the core of your being. And that's exciting work and it's deep work. And we do that in the first 2 days. And then we take the next 3 days in terms of how do you use that information as a coach without telling the client who they are or what they need to do, and put it into a framework of asking questions. How do we ask questions? How do we listen? How do we listen differently? And then finally, we start getting ready for how do I speak about coaching? And what are some of the tools that I use in getting started? So we'll go through a progression of sample sessions or complimentary sessions that you'll be doing, and you'll get a volunteer client to do that each evening or between sessions. And it progresses from real basic. Out of 25 competencies that we're looking for on the first day, we'll be looking for the first 13 of them. The next day, 18 of them. The next day, 20 of them. And then finally, all 25. Progressively giving you higher and higher levels of experiences of coaching at a deeper level. So that's real basic, but that's kind of the broad brush instructional design of this. And it will be, if I were to divide it up, it's probably, I'm going to say less than a third, maybe 25% tutorial right? Listening to me pontificate about coaching or a particular competency or the relevance of that and how it fits in. And 2/3 to 3/4 is experiential. You actually putting it into practice, you having a coaching session. There'll be one of the newer things that's coming into the training is observation. So somebody will be observing you for part of an exercise and then giving you a written feedback through Google Classrooms and saying, yep, we saw you do this, we saw you do this, we saw you do this, and so on. So there's, it's really quite brilliant. It just is.
Tanvi, you're leaning forward. There's a question coming to your mind as Peter was speaking. And if there is, you can go ahead and ask it now.
No. I was just taking a look at the course, and it's all virtual, right? For 5 days.
That's right. It's all
Okay.
completely virtual. And the
Great.
And the program it's a 3-month program. The first 5 days is really this structure. And then it's followed up with every alternate Wednesday for 6 Wednesdays. We have what we call as building the practice of coaching webinars, which happens once every alternate Wednesday, again, 7:30 to 9:30 IST time.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah? Cool.
Thank you.
So next question, Peter, again, is from a person called Anshu Mordia, and she's an investment banker. And so her real concern is that what is the kind of time commitment that I need to put in to do this program? And the way she asks is what are the process and deliverables? So I had to check back with her to see is the process and deliverables that you're looking for the facilitator to make or that you have to make to the session. And she said, no, I just really want to understand what is the kind of time commitment that is expected from participants and what's the result as in what's the outcome that they will receive having put in this kind of time.
I can definitely talk about the first one. The second one is variable in terms of what time and energy you put into it is what you'll get back out of it. So that's the easy one. From a time standpoint, the first 5 days, you're going to be in the virtual classroom, but it's very active. It's a lot of breakout rooms. There's a lot of, like I say, exercises are going on. And so what I'm looking for in terms of time is 6 hours of concentrated time. And then 2 hours average of homework, if you will. We call it home play, that you'll do in between sessions. So some of the things that we talk about during that day, you'll put into practice that evening or the next morning before the program begins, IST time, so that you can have the experience of what was easy, what was gratifying, what was hard. Then we'll have Q&A around all of that the following day. So that's for the 5 days. We give you 40 hours of coach-specific training hour credit. That's a terminology that the International Coaching Federation uses. And so it's 40 hours in 5 days. So it's very, very concentrated. From a preparation standpoint, we ask that you take whatever's coming up in the next 5 days, whether it's preparing meals or childcare or corporate meetings or whatever, and just delegate it out. Somebody else in the household can make meals and serve me during the breaks. Someone can take care of the evening chores and duties of the household and let me concentrate on my homework. So that's the kind of commitment that we're looking for those 5 days, very concentrated intentionally. After that, as Amrita just said, we do a 2-hour webinar every other week over the course of the next 2.5 months. And so it loosens up. It's much more flexible in terms of when you can do your coaching. We're going to ask you to do some coaching. We're going to ask you, the only fixed time is the actual webinar, the 2-hour webinar, which we record. We will not record any part of part 1. So you have to be there for the first 5 days. We don't record any part of that. We don't distribute it to anybody. We just don't. Because it's a live event and it's very live. For the weeks that follow, like I said, I would guess maybe, I'm going to say 2 hours a week, maybe 3 hours a week if you're gung-ho. But you can do that on your flexible schedule. You can do it any day, any time of the day. And it's going to be mostly focused on practicing coaching, actually coaching. So what you get out of it is what you put into it. So I can't say that. I can say there's a possibility that you will have a more than a rudimentary understanding and more than a rudimentary way of practicing coaching, regardless of whether you ever coach a client in your life. You'll be a better parent, you'll be a better executive, you'll be a better human being. Just an aside, I haven't even told Amrita this, but I had one group that we did literally 20 years ago. I got an email 3 days ago from one of the people that were in that group. This is a group that we did in San Diego when I was still living there. And she said, today was the first day 20 years ago, literally on that day, like March 25th or 24th, whatever it was, that we started the part 1, same thing that we're talking about right here, in San Diego together. And she said, now I'm retired. so I have coaches that I've trained that are retiring now. And she reminisced about how impactful that was for her life as a mom, as a professor, as a coach, as a business owner, as a wife. And that some of those principles that we talked about in that first 5 days were still with her and living inside of her and being appreciated and exercised. And then several of the other people that she had emails for that chimed in and said, yep, I'm still living by the principle of whatever, a positive focus is one of them, which is, so this is sticky. This is sticky business in terms of altering our, even down to our way of being, to frankly live a more conscious life. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Peter, there are a few people on this call and many who have sent in their questions who are from the corporate world, and so this whole shift in terms of how does this program and being an ICF certified coach eventually through this program is the first step. How does it support L&D and senior professionals within the organizational context who may or may not choose to be coaches immediately, but just how does it support them at their workplace? And L&D is of course, learning and development as the person asked, but I would just say is the whole gamut of leaders being coaches. How does that, how does all of this sit in that paradigm?
I'm going to reverse that and say, I think coaching has been the leader of the movement of personal development in the last 25 years. Now that's a broad statement and a bold statement. Coaching started 26 years ago with the concept of the client is the source of their own best answer. Now, if that's true, and if I believe that, and if I live by that as a leader, the shift that's taking place, and you've probably noticed it in your own careers, is there's a lot less telling people what to do and unlearning that piece of what old leadership was all about, or old mentoring was all about, and shifting to asking more powerful questions that supports the individual to come up with their own best answer on how to navigate blank, how to navigate a product launch, how to navigate customer support, how to navigate supply chain issues, et cetera, et cetera. How do I get along better with the people around me, whether they're in my corporation or around me? So the benefit of coaching in the world of corporate, and I'm gonna broaden that to non-corporate. It could be civic organizations, it could be school organizations, it could be nonprofits or NGOs. this is a movement that's not going to stop. This is a movement that is going to empower the fellow human being, whether they report to me as a direct report, or they're my child, or they're my cousin, or they're my neighbor, to support, first of all, a more openness to diversity, honoring that individual as an individual, and holding a space for them to figure it out, even when it's arduous, even when it's hard. Now, just tell me the answer, boss, and let me go do my job. Yeah, that's good. Short term, that's great. That takes care of that particular issue for that particular day. Everybody can get back to work. Short term is not viable anymore. How do I develop the person that's 27 years old to be the leader that he or she's going to be in the next 3 years? That is why coaching has become so prominent, and it's so universal. This is not just an American thing. This is not just a Caucasian thing. This is not just a, it works in corporations and these kinds of corporations. No, I've had people from all different kinds of industries, all kinds of walks of life, that have learned some basic principles on how can I best support the development of the people around me. It doesn't matter that you're an investment banker. It doesn't matter if you are a CEO. It doesn't matter if you're an L&D, H&R, HR work. It's human. This is all about human development. So whether you become a professional coach or not is almost irrelevant. My guess is that probably a quarter of the people that I've trained, and there's probably more than 4,000 or 5,000 people now worldwide. My guess is that probably a quarter of them have done some form of professional coaching. They have a coaching practice. Now, maybe they're full-time and maybe part-time. It might be as an internal coach as part of their other corporate duties. And the other 75% are just plain better human beings. They raise their kids in a more open environment. And I could tell you stories of one that pops in my head now, a guy from Mumbai, daughter in high school. And because of coach training, he handled that situation very differently than he would have 2 years earlier before coach training. His story, not mine. And it was like one of these aha moments on this guy that was probably in his, I don't know, late 40s, early 50s. And said, Peter, it not just worked, but I have a better relationship, and my daughter got more out of this last year than she would have ever done if I had told her what to do and what she can't do. It's like, yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter, for not only answering it so passionately, which is really one of, I always tell people when they inquire about coaching is, look at people who are going to teach you the program as well. And, you can really see and experience Peter's passion and presence both. And that's really what makes this program so special, and co-facilitating it along with him is like one of my biggest joys and privilege.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Tanvir's here, and I'm going to use your question really to segue to the next part, which is really about the profession of coaching per se, and sharing our own perspectives about it. And his question, Peter, is that what would be the top 3 skills that are required for a professional coach? So I'm going to invite you to answer it. I'll speak a little bit about it. And Tanvir has a special question that he put in the chat box, which I'll invite you to ask after we've answered this question of yours. Absolutely. So what I'll say, repeat the question again, because it was in the most uncoach-like manner that I rattled off so many things. But I'll say that his question is, what are the top 3 skills, according to you, that a successful professional coach must have or possess?
Great question. I think number one skill is more of, I'm going to go to mindset for a lot of these things. The mindset of part of my life's work. Okay, I'm speaking about from the coach's perspective now. Part of my life's work is to support others to thrive. If that's not part of your innate core beingness, then don't become a coach. You were meant to do something else. Go build bridges, hammer stuff, whatever. All right. Number two is a mindset that my client actually does have their own best answer, even when they protest and say, I don't. Yeah, but Peter, I don't know. You're an elder, you've been an executive, you've been an international executive, you've been blah, 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 whatever they know about me. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that acknowledgement. And what do you want to do about this? What are your next steps? How do you want to show up as a human being as you are having that tough conversation with your blank, with your direct report, with your boss, with the the chief marketing muck that's flying in from Singapore, or your daughter? Third one is listening. 90% of coaching at the mastery level is listening. If I'm speaking as a coach, and I'm doing a lot of that, I'm probably not coaching. I'm probably back mentoring, I'm back teaching, I'm back telling people what to do or how to do it or who they need to be seen, to be promotable, to be whatever. So those would be my top three.
I received your question a little earlier, so I had a time. Peter, of course, speaks impromptu, but I said, what would be my top three? And I really came up with like 3 different C's to it. But the sense of connection, similar to what Peter said in terms of mindset, just the sense of having that connection with my own self, as well as connection with the other person who I'm coaching. That connection really is not from a space of, oh, I have to know this person really well, I have to have great rapport with this person, but really connecting at a soul-to-soul level with that person. Whether I've seen them ever in my life or not, I can still build that energetic soul-to-soul connection. And that's my topmost skill that I see. The other is I see it as a sense of curiosity, which is keeping my great brain aside and like working through the pathway of my heart, really, to be curious about whatever the other person has to offer or share or say. And as if I'm receiving it for the very first time, and know that they are going to get what they're ready to get when they're ready to get it. And none of my great knowledge, expertise, advice is going to be of any support to them as much as their own belief and their own answers based on the curiosity that I show to whatever it is that they're offering. And the third piece for me is commitment, and commitment in many different ways. Just one is commitment to my own learning and to my own personal mastery, because I think this is the only profession where the more you work on your inner self, the greater you are as a coach. And so commitment to your own personal mastery, I think is key in this profession, as is in life, but it lends itself beautifully to this profession. And I think also the commitment to, the profession of coaching, because I think it's a huge responsibility as much as it is a privilege to hold space for another person. And so honoring, the ethics and taking pride in that profession and living up to it is what I hold as a big skill. And all of these 3, I think, are skills which, and I call it skills because it can be developed, because also they feel that these are innate to human beings. So we're innately connected or seek connection. We're innately people who are curious. And I think commitment is something that grows once you bring that sense of curiosity and connection to anything. So I think they're skills that can be mastered. Those are my three.
Thank you.
Yeah. And now over to you, Tanvir. You asked a really nice and, it came straight from your heart. So please share it
Yeah,
yourself.
it did. So Peter, just a question that popped up in my head. I've been part of the corporate journey for about 20 years now. And it's a mixture. I've been very simple. My 11 years of my life have been with Unilever, and now 5 years with another FMCG sort of company, which is there. I'm very passionate about giving back. Whatever I've learned, it's very troublesome to see a young person struggle with some of the corporate tension and the life that comes along with it. So definitely part of me wants to definitely give back, and the journey I've run in a way, maybe somebody can get some benefit out of it. I just want to understand, am I late for the journey? Am I starting at the right time? Because I see this as something that I would want to devote my life to for the next whatever foreseeable future, So is there a certain time or age that is right to start this journey?
Yeah, now.
Okay.
It's never too late. I don't care if you're 65, I don't care if you're 75, but it's never too late to A, know who you are and what you're meant to be doing here.
Yeah.
And B, go do it. Go be it. So, I would joke liberally with people and said, oh God, I'm 50 years old now. And, my life's over. I got to start winding down. It's like, all right, so stop bragging that you're so damn young.
And just one last question to this one. Is there, so in India, of course, there is a huge preference for top Ivy League colleges and graduates from that one. In the span of coaching, I mean, if you're not from one of those select few colleges and you're a normal person who has done a fairly good amount of work in his life, as a coach, is there an advantage or a disadvantage, or is there a preference for being from Ivy colleges or big names?
Yeah, there's a big disadvantage of coming from an Ivy League school or a prestige school because you have more to let go of to be a coach.
Okay, so that works in our favor then.
Yeah, for us average folks that we got a university degree, hip hip hooray for us, or a master's degree, hip hip hooray for us. But it's not from Stanford, it's not from Yale, it's not from Harvard, it's not from the School of Economics in London or whatever. The school of life that has brought an individual candidate that's thinking about taking up coaching, and that has supported them to become more compassionate with themselves, first and foremost. Going back to Amrita's, self-care is the first step. Which most of my corporate world, I did none of that. I was a human doing and programmed to do lots and lots of stuff, and I got rewarded really well for that. Monetarily, accolades, promotions, skipping grades, etc. But it did nothing to build up my soul. So to the degree that you are a compassionate human being that wants the best for all the people that are around you, and as in your case, if I'm hearing it right, the young executives that are coming up, or the wannabe executives that are 22, 25, 27, that will serve you greatly as a coach. And the only thing that you need to do then is to separate, okay, so here I do the workshop and I'm teaching. From my experience, you need to have 4 elements of competency. You need to have skill competency, you have to have organizational competency, you have to have human interactions competencies, whatever that might be for you. Do the workshop, but that's not coaching. And to know that that's not coaching. And coaching doesn't replace good training. It doesn't replace good mentoring. It doesn't replace good management or leaderships. But then if you want to go coaching and then have one-on-one or group coaching after that workshop where you don't answer their questions. Yeah, you talked about this back in session number 2. Could you go over that again? No, not as a coach. Do you have your notes? Yes, well, go get them. Look it up. Oh, here it is. All right, yeah, number 2 is delegating or whatever it was. Because as a coach, you're no longer teaching them what to do or how to do it your way. But the compassion of wanting to support another human being, hip, hip, hooray. That will serve you greatly. Does that answer your question, or what did you get out of that, if anything?
No, thank you. I think that answers my question because as you were talking through, I was reflecting on the kind of style and the person I am. And I think it made a lot of sense because that's exactly where I would want to be someday.
Super. Wow, super.
And Tanveer, I'm going to add to that specifically in terms of the program that's coming up in April, where we do still have a few seats to offer in that program. There is the youngest person in that program is 24 years old, and the oldest person in that program is 69 years old.
Oh, wow.
So that's the spectrum of people that come to coaching. And I was so wanting you to ask that question, but if I typed out a response to the question that you sent to me in direct chat, I would have said that whenever that calling comes or the door is knocking, that's the right time. So when Peter said now, I said, yay, it's exactly what I was tuning into as well. It's
thank you.
Yeah. So when you hear the call, it's your choice whether you decide to answer it or not.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you.
Super.
Okay. Next question really is from Rashmi Joshi, and I think it's probably a question that's on many people's minds, even if they may not have asked it directly. Is that what could be the opportunities for those who are looking to take on coaching as a full-time profession? And I'll add a question to that. An underlying theme is like, can I really make money from this profession? And see, I'm seeing the smiles already up, so I'm sure that I struck the right chord. So Peter, your response.
It's yes, you can make money at being a coach. From my own observation through the years, the bigger battle is how do I become an entrepreneur? If I've never been an entrepreneur and I've been in a corporate role, a corporate support system around me, an ecosystem that I don't have to worry about payroll. I don't have to worry about supplies. I don't have to worry about space to work. Oh, that's changed in the last 2 years, but forget that one. So to become an entrepreneur, then you are, you do everything. You acquire the clients, you take care of the clients, you deliver the deliverables, you do scheduling. Hopefully you have a VA as smart and as wonderful as the one I've got. Or the team of people that Amrita has around her for delegating things that we don't want to do or they can do much better. So even from that regard, it's become easier because you can do VAs virtually. And they are spectacular. So just a huge plug for VAs, and thank God for the technology that allows me to do that and have that. In terms of making money and opportunities, there are 1,000% more opportunities now than there were in 1996. 1996, it was a one-on-one business, and you recruited them to be your client. Then they paid you for your services. They may work with you for 6 months and then be done or satisfied in terms of that level of growth. And maybe you don't see them again for maybe 2 or 3 years. They'll call you back and they say, you remember me? You coached me back 3 years ago. And I said, yes, I distinctly remember that. Well, I'm at another plateau in my career or my life or my stage of life. Could I coach with you again? And that was the narrative in 1996. Here's the narrative now. one of my graduates said, Amazon wants to hire coaches and they're starting off at a $500,000 a year to come in and to be an internal coach for their top level executives. Really? Wow. Yeah, you have to be an MCC, which is no easy matter. It takes most people 8 to 10 years to get there. You've had to been coaching top level executives and have a massive amount of experience in doing that. But those opportunities that just literally did not exist even 10 years ago. There's been a ton of internal coaching that has existed for the last 15 years. Some of the early adopters of internal coaching was the country of Singapore. It was IBM had a whole division of, they hired 200 coaches to be internal coaches back, I'm going to say back in probably 2000, 2001. I haven't tracked that program, but there's coaches now that are being hired in universities to coach incoming, not graduates, incoming students. That didn't exist 10 years ago. Rice University in Texas, Dallas, Texas is one of the forerunners in that. I think you can talk to Amrita and Nidhi. They've been hired by a university to coach incoming students in their classes. And of course, then there's still the entrepreneurial approach, external, that I set up my own practice. And the one thing that we do in our ARC program is to help you to define who are they? Who are you best qualified to coach, even though you're not going to tell them what to do? Do you know their ecosystem? Do you know the world that they live in? Do you know the disadvantages that they've had to overcome because they were a person of color, because they were a female in the corporate setting, because they didn't go to a prestigious university, because they are an age that they're at, because they're not technical, because they have a hard time speaking to people, on and on and on and on. People get put into little pigeonholes because the perception of that client within their current ecosystem doesn't give them their full value. So even though you're not going to tell them what to do and how to do it, and figure out a strategy for their life, if I have grown up in that same environment as a person of color, or as a female, or as a person that has been not looked at and given full credit for who I am as a human being, and I've lived through that, I've struggled with that, I may still be struggling with that, then I can ask better questions. I can hold a space for them and say, you've got this. And if it takes you 3 weeks to figure something out, then it's okay with me. And not jump in to rescue them. If you are a codependent, like I used to be, and a codependent is one that has to be there for everybody, helps everybody, let me help you across the street. And, he's a triathlon Olympic athlete, but he doesn't need my help to get across the street. But I enforce myself on him and say, well, let me help you get across the street because I know this is the first time that you're in Tokyo. This is the first time that you're in London. And the cars run a different way than they do where you come from. So let me help you. That's a codependent. So there are people that need support, and there's most of us that don't. Make them do, one of my favorite sayings, make the client do the work. Make the client do the work. Have them take ownership of their solution, whether it's good, bad, or different in terms of my perspective or what I would have them do. As a coach, not my prerogative anymore. So building a practice takes a lot of guts. Number one, to leave my corporate, salaried job where I get money put in the bank for me every 2 weeks or every month. Thank you very much, corporate. You've served me well, and now it's time for me to go out on my own, or to go back into corporate and negotiate with your current management and say, I'm a professional coach now, I've been professionally trained. I'd like to have 25% of my job description be working with our high potentials. That's happened a lot, by the way, in India. That's happened a lot in India. So you keep your day job, but you restructure your job description, and then you start collecting hours, internal coaching hours on your log, and we'll get into all of that in training. But there's massive amount of opportunities now as a coach that didn't exist 10 years ago, and becoming more and more. My estimate is that we are way understaffed worldwide, globally, in terms of professionally trained coaches. Because one coach can only coach maybe, even if it's a full-time job on your own as an entrepreneur, maybe 20 clients at a time. 20. And if I take a perspective, which I do, and say, okay, so if you are taking responsibility for your own life and you want to become more conscious, you ought to have a coach, professionally trained coach. If you are not responsible for your own life and there's still trauma that is resident, then coaching is not appropriate for them. They need to go see a therapist, a counselor, a trained, licensed person in their country to go through and unravel that trauma that happened at 13 years old. But for the rest of us, and I'm going to call that, even if you're generous and say, all right, so 20% of people have been traumatized to the point where they can't take responsibility for their own life. Great. Not great, but that's the role of the therapist. We are not training you to be a therapist or a counselor. But for the other 80% of people that just have human hangups and hot dramas and, the world's falling apart, at some point in time in their life, a coach would be a spectacular support person for that individual. So if you want to do some math, figure out how many trained therapists or counselors are currently doing that work in India or the country that you're in, or worldwide. I haven't added them up worldwide because I haven't done that research. Multiply it times 4, and that's how many coaches I think we need in the world.
And we'll be,
now,
sorry.
Just one last piece. And I can't coach everybody. It's not my job to coach everybody. If a woman that is 18 years old, unwanted pregnancy, mom and dad have religious beliefs about what you can do in this situation, they may go to a coach that has gone through that for themselves or have worked with other women, young women that are going through that. They're never going to find me. They're not going to come within 100 kilometers of me and look for me to be a coach for them. But a world-changing visionary that has a huge social agenda that wants to bring out his or her idea that makes the world a better and more compassionate place to live in and work in, they're going to find me. So it's like pick your lane. Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. What I was just going to say is that, and at least we'll be adding to 24 more of those professionally trained coaches next month. But but with that, Rahul and Nirti are both here, and they've asked some questions,
Sure.
which I think I'd better take them first, and then go back if we have time to the other questions of the people who are not here today.
Okay.
But let me take Rahul's question first, as it ties in with what you just shared. And Rahul, I've taken the liberty of tweaking it a little bit to give the right context.
Okay.
Is that, what do you see the role that professional coaches play in sharing and demonstrating the value of coaching? I mean, his specific question is around the value of coaching, right, Rahul? And so what do you see is the role that coaches play, irrespective of which field they are serving in, whether it's the corporations or government or institutes, community, schools, universities. So how do they demonstrate that value of coaching or share that?
Can I give a little bit of background
Sure,
to
sure,
that?
sure.
Yes, please.
So, coaching, like you said, Peter, is just beginning to become bigger or more relevant in the beginning to this discussion. It's just starting, and so my relationship to coaching and how I've seen it grow, and that's where I'm kind of trying to put a color to this, is mostly people would look at coaching as in sports. If you try and look at a basketball team, people work with coaches to develop a certain skill or a certain level of maturity for this sport. And over the years, when I look at sports teams now, they are the first people to bring about coaches who work on the mindset of players, to help these players break their own barriers. And a good example is I love football, or soccer as we call it here in the US. There never used to be many coaches other than skill, which is more technical skill of the sport, in the game of soccer or football. But today, when I look at Liverpool and I look at Manchester City, which is the top performing two clubs, they have over 60 mindset coaches working with their teams inside their club. And that revelation has happened just in the last 5 years. It is not a pandemic impression. It's not a post-pandemic impression. But how can professional coaches kind of embed this same belief and or help in embedding coaching as a need in the corporates? Because I don't see the difference between a sport versus being in life, doing something for yourself and or doing at work. All in every space of life, you need to have a coach. And organizations always have been the last. So the example that you quoted of Amazon, it looks like another early adopter of coaching when I look at the mindset of an organization. And Amazon has been an innovator in many ways and also an early adopter of many new ideas.
Sure.
So how can professional coaches then be the people who can maybe systemically try and embed coaching into the workplace ecosystem?
I think we're doing that. I mean, the story I talk about Amazon, and the same lady calling back a couple of days later and said NASA, right, our space agency here in the United States, also is looking for a similar kind of high level coach. And I think she was in the final round to be considered for being hired. It's like holy mackerel. The individual coach, the average Joe, the average Raul coach, is to be a professional and to hold that this is a profession. And so this comes direct for me, again, incredibly practically, go back to the ethics and standards that we live by. I am a ICF professional, period. I am an ICF professional. And part of that is being an educator of what coaching is and what it is not. What you can expect to get from a coach and what you cannot expect from a professional coach. So let me give you a real tangible example. Early days when I was traveling to India, and this would have been circa 2009, I think, was the first time that I came physically to bring our program to India. I was training them, and again, in terms of what the coach's mindset is, and the coach's mindset is I have 100% complete confidentiality. And if I'm negotiating with the HR or the sponsor in that organization or the L&D director who's responsible for the, the high potentials or whoever they want to bring coaching in for, the top executives, C-suite people. But they want to report from me as a coach. I want to know progress. We'll have 3 deliverables, and I want progress on each of those at the end of each coaching session. I can't do that. I can't do that legally or ethically as a professional coach. If you want that and you hire someone that calls himself a coach, and yesterday was a consultant, has had no training and does not live by the ethics and standards of the professional coach, then you'll ruin the modality of coaching in your organization for the next 10 years. Because there's institutional memory that says, "Whoo, no, do not get a coach because it's all going to get reported back to whomever."
Yeah. Yes.
Because that was, and so you have 2 different mentalities here. You have the mentality of the executive that says, "Oh, how do I know I'm getting value for my money? Because this is not cheap." And you have the coaching that has a very staunch, so it's all built on confidentiality. If they can't open up and be trusted or trust their coach to talk about sex, to talk about affairs, to talk about greed, to talk about, their aspirations, to talk about the organization's, soft spots, then deep down coaching doesn't happen. It stays very superficial, very transactional. And we still have a lot of that, too much of that in the world, in my opinion. But when I can take a staunch, and they haven't hired me because of that in some cases. No, we want somebody to report back. Okay, well then, please don't call it coaching. But believe it or not, don't call it coaching. Just, we need to get a teacher in here. We need to get an expert in here, but don't call it coaching. Call it something different. So we are ambassadors of this philosophy. We are ethical practitioners of this modality. We are advocates for having a chemistry and matching up to the right client. We did a roundtable back, I don't know, this is probably 6-7 years ago now, in India. And these were like L&D and HR people from Microsoft, I forget the other companies, but all international Fortune 1000 companies, Tata, and so on. And several of them said that, yeah, we've tried coaching in the early stages here because it seemed like a good idea. And there's been a lot of press, in Harvard Business Review and Wall Street Journal and all that, right? But it hasn't worked. 80% of the time, it doesn't work. I said, how are you matching up your coach and your clients? Well, we assign them. Aha. So the candidate that is, going to be coached did not have a say in terms of, okay, so we have Amrita and we have Peter and we have Tanvir and we've got Tushar and so on, right? As impaneled. Okay, so they've all been vetted as professional coaches. They have the right credentials. They have the right training. They actually understand what a professional coach is supposed to be doing. And allow the client to choose, I want to work with Amrita. She just has a vibe that I get along with. I like the way she speaks. I think she would understand my world as a fellow female executive, perhaps. But there was none of that. So there's still a ton of work to be done to your question that each individual one of us will either add to that education of the world or not, or erode it. And so I am passionate about the ethics. I'm passionate about, do you even know what the ethics say? Is there a conflict of interest that's potential here because I own stock in your company? Is there a potential conflict of interest because I have coached not your direct report or your direct boss, but I've coached somebody in the organization, and I am privy to things that are going on inside that organization confidentially that may impact my neutrality with you. So I have to take myself out of the running. Don't, okay, so look at Amrita, look at the other people that have been impaneled, but it's and there's a lot more work to do in that area. There just is, because coaching has become so popular, everybody's calling themselves a coach. And they got certified over the weekend, and so now they're a certified coach. And for the buying public, they don't know the difference. So there's a lot of education, a lot of conversation that takes place up front. Here's the kind of coaching that I do. Here's the kind of coach I am. I am aligned with the International Coaching Federation, which is I think, the gold standard in the world. There's a great organization out of Europe, but the ICF has done more research and put more energy into creating standards for those of us that train. And we're going through another leapfrogging literally in the moment, which I highly endorse. And standards for what's ethical practice as a professional coach. So know those, live by those, advocate those, and make sure that that client knows what they're getting in you as a coach. So what do you hear in that, Rahul?
My analogies are always just an experience of something in life. So if you've seen Ted Lasso, he happens to have Dr. Sharon as his coach, and it just speaks volumes about the change that he goes through in his life.
Yeah.
And then I also think of Billions, where there is this HR person who everyone thinks is an HR person. She's in the private equity or the investment banking space, where everyone's just gruesome and they have their strategies. But then she's a performance coach who has this very strong ethical relationship to her work and operates with a form of an accord and a foundation as a pillar to not just keep her credentials strong or maintain her credibility, but in a greater good of serving the clients, the confidentiality has a significant part to play. That is the integrity of the system.
Yes. Yeah, well said. Yeah, this is not new stuff. I mean, you talk about professional coaches, right, at university level or professional level. I think of a Phil Jackson, right, basketball coach here in the U.S. That Michael Jordan. You can look what that man can do with his body. It's like he defies gravity, right? I mean, that kind of why the hell would he need a coach? But Phil Jackson, what did he do? He had to meditate. It wasn't about laps. Yeah, we need body conditioning. We got that. Thank you very much. But where's your mind? Where's your focus? How can you get rid of the clutter of, this is a championship, or this is, you didn't perform so well, you missed the last shot in the last game, and all the mind, again, the mind stuff. John Wooden, back in my day, was a college basketball coach for the UCLA team that had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. His name was Lou Alcindor when he was in college. And you watch, and he was about developing young men. That's how he defined his job. How do I develop these young men to be good human beings? And of course, they won all kinds of championships and changed the rules because Kareem was stuffing stuff, and we can't have this stuffing. That's not basketball. So this is an individual thing. From both from a spiritual standpoint and from a practical, ethical standpoint, you'll get that every single exercise that we go through in our training talks about that in some form or fashion, to how to hold that space, number one, for yourself, number two, for the client, number three, for their employer or, you know, their ecosystem.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Great question.
Yeah, and I just want to chime in and say that I don't want anyone to leave from here today thinking that you have to be one of these famous coaches to demonstrate the value of coaching. And the reason I say that is because I think that each and every person who becomes a professional coach, and the way that I see it, is that we also hold a responsibility in, even if it is educating that one client that you work with, or that one organization that you work with, or raising the awareness within groups of people, sharing about what you're doing, whether it's a post on LinkedIn or whether it's something on your website that talks about how you maintain the standards. But I think each one of us plays a role in and I think it's a responsibility to take pride in that profession and demonstrate that. And that's really how the value of coaching will keep getting enhanced way beyond, of course, there is this need for coaching. And also calling out when you're a certified coach and wearing that badge of honor with great joy and sharing that with everybody. I think everyone can do that and must do that as I see coaching. But moving on, Peter, Niyati is also here, and Niyati, question was really sweet and simple. I just want to understand more about coaching, and I hope that that you've got a glimpse of that. But I took the liberty again with your question to turn it to Peter and say, Peter, you've been coaching and teaching people to be coaches for close to over 26 years now. So if you can share that, what motivates you to keep continuing to do this? And as I know, as a little privy to all the innovation that you bring to coaching, is that you're keeping on reinventing different stuff, processes, the way it's delivered, how you coach, and in keeping yourself going. So what is it that motivates you to continue on this journey, contributing to it as well as practicing as a professional coach?
I love the easy questions. The easy answer to that is, this is my life's work. It just is. This is what I'm meant to be doing. This is why I think God created me, is to support people to know who they are at the core level of their being, and go through a methodology to figure that out. For the first 37 years of my life, I was a corporate animal. I was, and a really good one, and a well-trained one, and a well-compensated one. But it had no soul to it. So when I was going through midlife crisis and saying, who am I and what am I here for and how does my life make a difference, all the existential things that, they use the word existential in university. I didn't know what the hell it meant. What does that mean? So at 37, I started trying to figure out who I was, and then I got all the advice of, well, just be yourself. Yeah, but what does that mean? So one of the things that came through, I grew up religious, not spiritual. At midlife crisis, I kind of converted to a sense of spirituality. There has to be something bigger, greater, divine guidance, whatever, in the planet, in the universe. And so I started studying the spiritual principles, one of which is that I am a creation and a representation of my divinity. Okay, and I'm unique in terms of my human nature, my physical, cultural, all that. And the question that I kept coming back to is, but how do you access that inner or innate core that was put there by a divine creator? Again, however you name that, honor that. And there was no obvious answer. I just kept on coming back to, just be yourself. Now, what I figured out in the last 30 years since then is I had, at 37, I had probably 40 or 50 personas of self. Okay, I'm self, I'm a Caucasian self. I am an educated self, I'm a corporate self. I am a husband self. I am a brother self. I'm a son self. I'm an overachiever self. I'm an A-type personality self. But none of that was internal. All of that was conditioned from the outside. I've been molded, prodded, pushed, educated, expected, so that I fit in. So I fit into the corporate world. So I fit into being a good American citizen. I fit into being a good US Marine Corps officer, which I was in a previous lifetime. But none of that spoke to the internal. So what I see is as a coach and as an educator of coaching is we have maybe the first time in human history that we can support a human being internally, globally, with an attitude of supporting them to develop their innermost being. A lot of coaching and a lot of coach training has to do with the doingness of life. Okay, we address that in Coach for Life, we do. But more important than the doingness of life is the beingness of who I am meant to be. How was I designed to show up as a dad? How was I designed to show up as a fellow human being? How was I designed to show up as a fellow colleague at work that I have a mentoring relationship with, or we talk about, the human development and personal development work. Those were not part of the conversations that I got at university. Those are not part of the conversations I got in Marine Corps. Those weren't the conversations I was having in my corporate career. My corporate career, it was all about what have you done for me lately, right? I was in sales and marketing for a big part of my career. I was an international global executive for many parts of my corporate career. Lived in Tokyo, Japan for 4.5 years, traveled Asia, set up a business at 29 years old in Canada, and so on and so forth. Did lots of training in Europe. But that's all the doing stuff. So the passion, the excitement, the passion is, I guess, the best word for this, is I have a passion to now pass it on to the next generation of coaches. Like I said, I got coaches now that are retiring, for God's sakes. In fact, I came up with an idea yesterday that, okay, you can't retire until you send 2 people and pay for those 2 people back into training. I'm going to send out a thing to all my graduates and say, look, if you're gonna, we need to replace you, and we need more of you. So, it's minimum 2, and then you can retire. I'm excited about the globalization of coaching. I'm excited about bringing more compassion to the world. And that happens one person at a time. I'm passionate about giving back. I've been doing live video streamings for the last year. I probably have about 60, maybe 70 now. You can go, if you're missing Peter, go to YouTube or Facebook and do a download, and I talk about the ethics, I talk about the competencies of coaching, all of that. So I think there's a lot of ways, and again, I'm a voracious learner. I like learning about solar panels. I love learning about flying cars. I love learning about new technology, video editing, video streaming. So I just think that my life is just, I figure I'm 2/3 done. I think I have another 37 years, going to live into 111. So I got a lot of work to do. And this is a big part of it.
Peter, complete and sharing. Yeah. So Thank you. Thank you so much. So if you, I mean, haven't, I'm sure you figured it out by now so far, and especially Niyati, you asked that question in terms of coaching, the benefits of coaching, everything that you can offer to the other person. But what drives me in this form of coaching is what Peter's just spoke about, is it's really that gift that you give yourself of falling in love with yourself again, and then allowing that love to just overflow to whoever you meet, and whoever's lives you possibly can touch. And so, of course, you learn professional coaching, the skills of professional coaching, and all of that in the program. But I always share, and I'm sure you would have received an email from me definitely that says that look at this program as a gift you can give yourself of personal mastery. And becoming a professional coach is an added advantage, but it's really that's the bonus. But the gift you're giving yourself, and with that intention, do choose to become or join a program that can support you to do that. I really don't have much. I mean, I can go on saying and speaking about this for longer, but just want to be conscious of time and also give people who are here an opportunity. If you have anything that you'd like to ask or share, or just unmute to say hi, that's also fine. Then just go ahead and we'll spend some time to do that before we wrap up.
Okay, since I've been muted for so long. Great, listening to all that's been said, and I've come in with quite a blank slate, so I don't have too much expectations, or I would say I don't know what to expect. Rather, I've gotten some idea today. I'm most keen about this inner exploring part that Monica and you, Amu, and Peter have been talking about. And I don't know where that's going to lead, whether that will mean coaching is nowhere close to what I do professionally, but he put us at ease, Peter, from the very beginning, saying 70% of his students are not coaches. So I thought I was the misfit here, but now I think I'm in the majority. So all said and done, I'm looking forward to it and waiting to deep dive.
Super, super. Great to meet you. Looking forward to seeing more of you.
Thanks, Peter.
Anybody else would like to share or ask?
So Amrita, maybe I will go next.
Yes, go ahead, Lata.
So sorry again that I can't put on my video because I have a very old iPhone and the camera is really bad. So you won't be able to see anything of me except for some blurred light. So hello again, Peter, but I'm sure that, we will speak again. I'm quite confident about it. So I also want to introduce myself as one of the known culprits because I belong to HR. And I would also then say that having worked in an organization where I would say coaching is yet not embedded in the organization, but we do have a lot of things that we do in the organization in and around coaching initiatives. And that's how I happen to know Amrita and Nidhi also. So I would say a fair good understanding of what coaching can do to people and to ourselves to some extent. On a personal front, I think I'm on my spirituality streak. I believe in Aham Brahmasmi, which in India means I'm the core and everything begins and ends within us. So I relate to it. I would say in the last 5 years, I have been able to relate to it more often than not. I do think that I can bring in more compassion to many things that I do. And therefore, I've always been inclined to the conversations that Amrita has been kindly nudging me towards. And Peter, I did take the opportunity of going and looking you up on some of your YouTube conversations. So I've heard you before. I cannot deny that. And I do relate to many of the things that you are talking about. And I'm also somebody who believes that before we start doing something for somebody else, else, you should be able to do it unto yourself. And therefore the calling, which rightly Amrita said, if that timing happens, then that's the time you should get started. So thank you for having me today. And I'm really hoping that, I'll be able to join the sessions and be a part of this, this journey. So happy to have been here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lata. Great hearing from you. Great perspective as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Self-care, self-mastery. For me, for me, that starts there.
Right.
It all starts there.
Yeah, I've been 2+ decades in the corporate world, and as you rightly said, you've done it, seen it. I don't know. I'm very happy to even share it openly that I don't know whether the timing is right and whether it is time for me to move on into doing something else. But in what I'm doing today, if I could be a better person, if I could do influence or be able to be of help to somebody else, a few shades better than what I am today, then I think that's a great start. And that's what I would look forward to from any such engagement. So looking
Super.
forward to. Thank
Super.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lata, for sharing. And also just want to clarify to those here as well as those who are listening that you don't have to quit your job to become a professional coach.
Correct.
You can continue doing everything that you're doing and just bring more. We keep hearing it, bring my best self to work, bring the best version of myself to work. In this program, I can guarantee you'll discover or rediscover or reconnect with that best version, and then take it wherever you go. Once you've discovered it, it's difficult to let go of it. That I can guarantee.
That's good. I think that's very nice to hear that you don't have to. Although I would love to.
Two separate questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else would like to share anything else or ask anything? Final call on that. Time to speak now or when we meet next. Yeah. Okay. I just in closing, just share one aspect, and that is that there are many coach training programs, and I believe that every single coach training program is absolutely incredible and awesome in supporting you to become a professional coach, because they all meet the standards of that ICF specifies for coach training schools. And so to decide which is the program that you should go for, or you should explore or learn from, I think that if we've been able to communicate that to you, that the program that we offer is a spiritual based coaching program. It supports you to definitely be a professional coach, but it is a spiritual based coaching program. And with a great sense of humility, I say everyone who supports the program or who's part of the program, who delivers the program, every single person who's associated with the program walks the talk, and we embody everything that we teach. And that's why we're able to share it with you with that sense of passion. And if you resonate with the philosophy and the people, then this is a program that's knocking, that I would urge you to sign up for, if that is something that you resonate with. And if not, I also trust that you will find that right program, because it is that chemistry of coaches, but it's also the chemistry of choosing where you want to grow in your own personal and coaching mastery. So with that from me, I'll hand back to Peter to close the session with any final comments that you have.
Thank you, Amrita. I'm just basking in the magnificence of each of you. The way that you are bright, shiny, just curious, compassionate. I'll leave one thing. Be the best version of who your creator created you to be. That may be the most powerful initiative that any human being can take on. Be the best version of what your creator created you to be. And so for me, the first thing I had to do is figure out who that was, because I didn't know. And I had not been trained in being myself. The second part of that is actually living in alignment with that created being. And thirdly, to celebrate that. And I often say that I am healthier, more vibrant, more energetic now than I was at 37 years old, by a long shot. And I attribute that to finding out who the best version of me that was created, doing my human best to be in alignment with that, with my plans, my decisions, who I work with, what I do with my life, what I do with my time. And I'm not bashful about celebrating me anymore. Before I was brought up, no, you don't say that about yourself. You don't acknowledge yourself that way. Now I do. And it reinforces that in my human brain to remember, oh yeah, I am a spectacular human being that was created to do the work that I'm here to do. So I'll leave that as a note, and I want to thank the Back to Source team, all of you, for sponsoring this and sponsoring the training coming up in April and beyond. So can't wait to see who shows up. Should be more of yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Good night to all of you.
Good
See you.
night.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.